Please join me for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll start off with roll call. Mayor Lindsay.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Howe.
Here.
Councilor Crane.
Here.
Councilor Weeks.
Here.
Councilor Humbert. We have a quorum. We may proceed.
At this time, I would ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I could please get a motion for the approval of the consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I get a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We didn't have anyone sign up this evening, to speak, so we'll move on to announcements and proclamations by council. Does anybody have anything this evening? We will move then on to staff reports, and I believe the only one reporting this evening is Tourism Director Ralph.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, your manager. Few things I want to cover tonight, just to bring the group up to speed on what we've been up to. One area that we've been working heavily on is some planning for a temporary events facility. I should have concepts in from consensus planning, the same people that drew up the Liberty Square plans for my temporary events facility. Then there's everything about working it into our long-term plans, our comprehensive plan, making sure everything fits, even though I want it open by Father's Day of next year. Part of that, we also have a skate park proposal in that has been received now from Oliver Bradley. He's the one that did the Skate Fest for the last few years. I asked him to come back with something a little more encompassing this year that we could incorporate into our events facility. He came back with a proposal that gives us an 8-week run with a skate park that includes instruction, events, staffing that he provides, and a fairly aggressive concert agenda with some main acts that some people in the room have heard of. So working on that, and that a lot of that keys upon the resort, working with the resort to develop the parking that we need to pull all this off. So I have been in meetings with John Kitts, talking about not only the parking here, but also the parking that I need for, again, next Father's Day weekend for balloons over Angel Fire across from the airport. He has given us permission to use that lot that we used to use before, with just brush mowing it and some primitive improvements that should work for parking for what we need for balloons. So at least we're making some progress there. Next thing I wanted to update you on is the air service update with Advanced Air. We do have an operations meeting at 10:30 tomorrow, which will help immensely in making some connections, learning who I'm working with at Advanced Air, so we can start planning our inaugural flight and promoting the schedule, filling those seats, getting some media out there, getting dignitaries on the planes. We even contacted Cimarron about hiring their marching band to play here at the airport when they land. So trying to build pomp and circumstance around what we have going on, get some excitement going here. That'll be December 19th. The schedule currently calls for 62 flights through March, with approximately 8 passengers per flight at this point, depending on load factors when they start flying people with luggage and other things and seeing how much gear and the weight restrictions they have. So that's, next thing I want to update you on is we just had a writer here we have an insert coming out in December in New Mexico Magazine that will reach, over its run, it reached 468,000 readers online and print copy. We have a 8-page insert in there. Got notice from New Mexico Magazine last week that the writer was coming in to do the piece. We got her in the last day of activities for the resort. She was able to do pickleball, ride the chairlift, do a bunch of other activities in town. She interviewed a bunch of people, came away. I was her last interview this morning. She came into my office. She had had a full agenda, loved the character she met here, came out here with a bunch of great story ideas, very excited about the things we have going on, told her about the new things we have coming up. She was able to stay with Nancy at the tree house. So it was a great rounded trip that should come off as a good story for us. Just an FYI, the visitor center is now its 7-day operation. It does open at 7:30 on weekdays and Saturdays, a little later on Sundays, and we're open till 5. So we're trying to be there when the guests are coming into town, and we will be flexible on those hours. So when we get into big Fridays where there's a lot of late check-ins, we'll be open. So we'll be providing those services. Next thing I'm looking forward to is item D on that agenda. I'd like to get back to work on the marketing and promotion of this valley. Had a little time out with Caristo on getting things done. I've got a lot of projects on the slate. We've got to get the website built out. Got to get all our lodging listed on that. We don't even have all of the resorts lodging properties listed on our website yet. I need that vibrant content. I need that. I want to put a webcam on our website at the end of the runway at the airport. I want traffic. I want that website to be the source of information for our region. And we've got some work still to do. We only got it about half done before we took our hiatus. So looking forward to jumping back into that and getting back to work. Any questions for me on the tourism director report?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The office looks nice.
What was that, Chuck?
I said the office looks nice.
Yes, it's coming. It's almost complete. We're getting there.
Greg, can I get you to give them kind of an update on, the Village Voice and, kind of the plans for the Village Voice?
Okay, you've noticed that we've put a newsletter in the last 3 utility bills. The 4th one has just been, written. I'll update it with information that comes out of this meeting tonight to update people on village projects with the fire department, water department. Talks about our Christmas lighting competition that we're gonna have in the valley. So the Village Voice is the printed newsletter part of it. Just met with the Comprehensive Plan Committee. They can't wait to get information in there and get starting getting some feedback from the residents. And then the other part of it is, brave new world for me. We're doing podcasts too. I started recording some yesterday. I know my voice is a little nasally, but I'm working on it. We're building it. We're getting a banter going with Brandon. He'll be running the edit boards. We're learning how to do it. It's new ground, but I want to be able to really get out there and communicate and celebrate our victories in this community. We don't do enough of thumping on our chests, and the tourism department's the perfect department to do that, because we're all about fun over there. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee reports. We had an extensive, comprehensive committee planning session prior to this meeting, with very detailed committee reports. I'd encourage anybody that wants to catch up there. It will be posted shortly. So with that, I think we'll move on to no old business, so new business. Item A, I would like to open discussion to approve the Dry-Fly new statewide price agreement contract for records management services. I'm sorry, Roger.
Got it. Mayor Lindsay, Mayor Pro Tem Howe, Councilman and Manager Ware. As you know, Tammy McClendon and myself have been working on researching and interviewing vendors to satisfy our big need to go paperless here in the village. And so we've what you have in front of you is this sheet here. And this sheet here is kind of a result of an analysis that we have done. So On the left-hand side of the page are the features that we feel are requirements for this project. It's a 3-year project. And on the top are the vendors that we have contacted that can do part of the work or all of the work. And so one of the things I wanted to point out to you is that some of these, when we first started this investigation, we felt like maybe we were never going to find a vendor that could handle all of the work, which is the scanning of the paper documentations, the imaging of the documents into a system, the agenda and meetings part that I personally need in my office as a clerk, and also the ability to build our own forms and workflows going forward so that we could maintain the paperless system. What we didn't want is to convert all the paper that we have in our backlogs here and then continue on with paper. We didn't want to do that. So in the analysis, as you can see there, across the board here, we have a few vendors here that do part of the work. They couldn't do all of it. There were 2 vendors that did, that came out and it could do the scanning part and also do the workflows and the forms for us. And as you can see here, we've chosen Nuvent. They're the one vendor that satisfied all of the requirements that I had on the left-hand side. And so today, what I'm proposing or requesting approval for is approval for a 3-year contract, which is behind this page. At this point, I would ask any questions that you may have about that.
One question I have is, I guess the initial year, the first year in, is gonna be pretty extensive because you're going through back files and trying to get, I don't know how many years back, it's gonna be pretty extensive.
Mhm.
And then is this 3-year plan, a plan so that we will, after this 3-year plan, be able to start doing this on our own, or?
Yes, yeah, this is a 3-year plan, and I hear what you're saying, Councilman and Mayor. The first year involves the scanning of documents, so does year 2 and so does year 3. They split it up where we do part of the records, part of the HR and the financial records in year 1. And then in year 2, we work to another set of records, and then in year 3, we finally do the planning and zoning, the large scale maps and everything that we have stacked up back there. So it's always going to involve scanning all 3 years. At the end of the year 2, actually, we're going to have the capability to do a lot of it on our own, but it's going to take this company to be able to continue scanning all the documents and putting them in an imaging system. One of the things that really stands out with Nuva is that they have the ability to understand the retention of documents. That's one thing that almost none of the vendors understood. We would have to do that retention here in-house, which means going through every box and looking at the dates and deciding what we keep and what we pass on for scanning. And so this particular vendor, Nuva, has that experience and this ability for them to do the retention is on them on this contract. And that was one of the big things for us. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I had a question. So obviously there's a statewide pricing agreement. Are there other municipalities that this vendor has done in similar condition to? And we have a very old, dusty filing room. So how do we compare to other stories that they've done this to, I guess would be my question.
Well, I think at that point, I think I'll invite them to come up and maybe give you a little insight about that. Is that okay?
Oh, yes.
Please.
Thank you.
We're all 3 gonna talk.
Council, thank you so much for allowing us to be here today, Rocky. Thank you, Mayor Lindsay, really appreciate your time. Couldn't have said it better. We are a full document management company. Our name is Dryfly Enterprises DBA Nube Group, and Nube is Spanish for cloud. So it goes back 13 years. We started out as a copier dealership, which we still are. We manage 72 machines at Holy Cross Hospital currently, and throughout the state. We go all the way down to the southern part, all the way to the northern part of the state. In 2020, we actually purchased a business called Document Imaging of the Southwest, and it was a full scanning company. And basically, it was a couple in their 70s. They were wanting to retire, and we were very fortunate to be able to meet them at the right time. So we were already doing a lot of document management on our own. We learned what we were not doing right back then, and we've really refined it over time. So we've got offices in Albuquerque and OK Wingate currently. We're developing OK Wingate. We've got the space. We're just trying to outfit it with employees and bring more jobs into that area, and of course the labs as well. But basically, to answer your question, sir, we do a lot of business throughout the state, specifically with municipalities. We've worked with Santa Fe County was more recently, OK Wingate, Navajo Nation, UNM Medical, US Fish and Wildlife is a federal job we just acquired.
Department of Corrections.
Department of Corrections, New Mexico Gas. I know not all these are municipalities, of course, I understand. Luna College was a big one recently, and that was right after the fire. You know, they had the fire right outside their back window practically, and I think we scanned over 400 boxes for them. So we understand, you know, how many pages typically a box holds, how many boxes fit on a pallet. We've got all that wired tight, and we really do a great job at managing those documents, digitizing, and working into a software that we call Highland that really allows us to set those retention schedules you talked about, give you access to those documents, to access, of course, share, edit, all that.
And you guys aren't in that bad a shape. So
You're not in bad shape.
We've seen files.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, we did work for Navajo Nation a couple of years ago and talk about old documents. I mean, everything from up to 44-inch plats down to onion skin, letter size sheets, we call them. Just old documents. We do a great job of repairing them and cleaning them up and making them very presentable and edible, all that. Legible, sorry. Not edible. You don't want to eat those documents. If I might, real quick though, we do a little bit more. I won't touch on this too much, but we offer a product also called Verkada. So we do cameras, we do access control, besides the copiers. And more recently, we have become a vendor for a product called Evolve. So we do concealed weapons detection. And we're gonna start rolling that out here in the very near future. So we're gonna be doing that with school districts across the state, and actually across the country. We recently became an 8A company, as my wife Kelly, she's the company president, so we're female minority owned. So I just want to throw it out there. Give you an idea, we have a wide breadth of offering and we're good at what we do. So, and with that said, I'll pass it on.
I think that answers your question.
Yeah. Yes, we have done a lot of municipal work.
And we've seen all kinds of records. I mean, we've seen bullets in boxes. We've seen teeth in boxes. I mean, so you guys are in good shape. I mean, there's been weapons in them too. So yeah, you guys are great.
Will there be cloud storage plus hard drive storage,
There's-
two different
We're
storage
looking at
capacities?
we're looking at cloud service, because that's what was requested.
I think that matches your infrastructure that you currently have. You have more of a cloud infrastructure right now.
But it'll just be one place.
Yes.
One
Where all this will be
central
stored.
repository.
With a backup, you can do a backup with it,
That's
so that you have it
okay.
co-located, yeah.
We have the ability to scan on site. We do have a secure warehouse also where we can take documents to our location, whether it be in Albuquerque or OK Wingate. OK Wingate obviously is a little closer, but that is an opportunity or availability if needed.
And our plan was to really take all the documents, bring it to our, on-site location. And, everything is secure, right? There's a chain of custody. We're HIPAA compliant, NARA certified. I don't know if you're aware of what NARA is, the National Archives and Records Association. So we have all our certifications, right? And, but once everything comes to our office, it's easy to locate what you're looking for. If you're wondering, like, hey, what if an IPA request comes in,
Exactly.
right? And we deal with that all the time. So we're able to
We'll perform
deliver,
that function for you since it'll be
we
an
can
honor.
scan it, send it over to you within 24 hours.
Well, that's exactly.
Yeah,
So you don't have to worry about
having
it.
access to the files while the work is being done is really
Yes.
important.
Yes,
That's big.
yes, that, we're well aware of that.
Do you guys have any other questions too? Anything that came up as you guys were reviewing the contract?
Manager?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I just want to add two things. Number one is that, to me, the key to, agreeing with, Tammy and Rocky's assessment that this was the best vendor is their workflow tool. Not only are we going paperless by taking the paper and making digital copies, but we are going to move the village into a truly paperless environment. We will have a process that paper comes in, will get entered electronically, and through the use of their software, it will stay electronic. Now, some documents were required to have paper versions, and we'll know those, and we'll continue to manage that paper. But the workflow will become totally electronic for the village, and that's things that we've been trying to go paperless, like AP and struggled and so on. These things will all be integrated, and at the end of this, it's not gonna happen overnight. To be frank, it would be too much for the village to bite off, for us to try and switch the whole village in 1 year, to a paperless environment. So the 3-year plan, it's really a 4-year plan because we're saving the best for last. Even though it's not in the contract, we are doing the police and the fire station in year 4, right?
Yep.
So they'll be the last to come on board in a paperless environment. But the workflow tool is the key, and the fact that they are a New Mexico company. I always like to buy local when I can, so to me, that was advantageous.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we are a new resident of Angel Fire, but it's.
Yeah, we care,
Oh, that's
we
right.
care about it.
And the ownership just bought a house in Angel Fire.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your time. Thank you all.
Appreciate you, thank you.
There's no further discussion or comments. I would ask Mayor Pro Tem Hal for a motion.
I make a motion to approve Dry Fly Newbie statewide price agreement contract for records management services.
Second?
Roll call vote on item A. Mayor Pro Tem Hal,
Aye.
Councilor Crane,
Aye.
Councilor Weeks,
Aye.
pass.
Moving on to item B, I'd like to open discussion to approve resolution 2024-72 for carry over cash budget adjustment requests.
So, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem and Council, we continue, some of these items are items that, were actually in prior year budgets and weren't included in the current year budget. Some of these items are things that we didn't contemplate in the budget. Weren't sure if we were ready, to purchase them and move forward. A couple of them you're gonna talk about tonight, like part of them is a bar for the Nube software, which at the time we were doing the budget, I wasn't sure that we would make it this far this year, to be frank. So I didn't include it in the budget. One of the things you're gonna talk later with the fire chief about is a new pumper tender that we wanna buy. And so we needed to do some budget adjustments for that. But these are all things, these are all items in which we do have the funds available to expend this money. They're all strategic to the plan that the council has given us to execute here. And we are asking for your approval of these budget adjustment requests.
Questions or comments? If not, I would ask Mayor Pro Tem how to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2024-72 carryover cash bars.
I'll second.
Roll call vote on item B. Mayor Pro Tem Hal,
Aye.
Counselor Crane,
Aye.
Counselor Weeds,
Aye.
pass.
Moving on to item C, I'd like to open discussion to proceed with amendment to RFP 2024-012 for professional FAA airport transition consultant services, excuse me. I don't believe our procurement officer is here this evening. This is a formality. She brought this to the Airport Transition Committee last Thursday. The amendment to the proposal does not need council approval, but I'd like to have it before you just to be aware. At the time the amendment was made, there had been no respondents to the proposal.
So, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Council, this is just some cleanup work that we had to do. One of the committee members identified some forms that were stated in the RFP that are older forms that were no longer required. And so we simply cleaned up. This doesn't change the gist of the proposal. We hadn't had any proposals submitted yet. We do have a lot of interest in this. And so it's just a little cleanup to the language in there to update it to modern or more up-to-date forms and requirements by the FAA.
Any further discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Hal?
I make a motion to proceed with amendment to RFP 2024-012 for professional FAA airport transition consultant services.
I'll second.
Roll call vote on item C. Counselor Crane,
Aye.
Counselor Weeds,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hal,
Aye.
pass.
Moving on.
Point of procedure, this didn't need a vote.
Oh, because we're.
So it was discussion only.
You're right.
So I request that vote be stricken from the record.
Done.
To have a vote on it.
It wouldn't be legal because we didn't declare it in the agenda item. It says discussion only on the agenda item.
I see.
Thank you, Manager
There
Ware.
was an action item. I apologize. Moving on to item D. Discussion to approve the Barista agreement. Director Ralph?
Good evening again. I believe you have all received the Caristo contract that was drawn up by our legal counsel, Nan Winter. It has basically the budget lines on it are $300,000 in fees, creative services, things beyond advertising media expenditures with $1.2 million for media advertising expenditures. Based on our fiscal year and where we are in it, we won't hit those spending numbers in this first year. Just won't have the ability to spend $1.2 million in advertising in the next 6 months in an effective manner. So while those numbers are proposed, it's on me to manage the expenditures of Caristo, make sure we're performing under the agreement and we're getting what we paid for. And like I stressed earlier, there's a lot of things we need to get rolling again, building out our website, getting our email templates up, getting our social media channels to where they need to be, doing our advertising creative and our media buy. It'll be nice to jump back in this. You've got the agreement. I don't see getting near the $300,000 in fees in future years based on the fact that we will have the website done, the email templates done. A lot of the photo and video will be done. The big library's built and we'll be refreshing it on an annual basis. Yes, there will be costs. We will still be spending $50,000 on photo and video on an annual basis probably, but we won't get to we won't have to design new logos and do the creative things we have to do in initial campaign build out.
Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Council, I just would like to add that this, contract, has been submitted and, through significant negotiation with, legal counsel for Cristo, and it's been approved by our legal counsel.
So, the legal counsel looks like they did a good job on the contract. My comments are that I believe Red River spends far less on media buy than this. In fact, I was told they spend 300,000 a year versus 1.2 million if this was a full year. So my question is, what would that 900,000 buy us that Red River's not doing?
We have to be I checked on the Red River expenditures and how it's structured there and have some family history with that Visitors Bureau. One of the areas that their Visitors Bureau saves a lot of money, they have a vibrant Chamber of Commerce that does all their events. The Oktoberfest, the Aspencade, the tourism department really has no involvement on those. They don't advertise them, they don't promote them. It's the Chamber of Commerce that's doing that. One of the other expenditures that we consider advertising and media expenses that they don't, this visitors guide that they put out is not considered advertising in their budget. I would consider this advertising if it was in my budget, because we're sending it out everywhere and we're placing it just like a brochure. So it's different ways of looking at the expenditures. And then there's the fact that realistically, Red River does about half the tourism we do. It doesn't seem like that, but skier visits, the resort does over twice the volume and 4 times the revenue Red River does. So winter I can compare, I have the knowledge there. Summer I don't have the background. But yeah, we're gonna go out hard. We have to establish ourselves. We have to establish a brand. We have to build demand in our major destinations throughout Texas. And those are expensive markets. Red River they don't advertise that much. You're right. They don't go hard in the media expenditures. But like I said, it's my job to manage this. If I don't see an ROI on it, we're not gonna spend the money on that media. So.
Andrew?
Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Council, I would also like to add that we are creating this from scratch. This year was really our first year. I mean, it's not totally from scratch. We had the balloon fiesta, but we had very few events. We're increasing to 10 events sponsored by the village, and they're new events. Whereas, you know, everybody knows, I mean, when I was a kid, we all knew about the Oktoberfest in Red River. People talk the motorcycle rally in Red River. All of these events that they have there have been decades, going on for decades, not all of them, but a lot of them. And so to advertise for something that's already known in the marketplace is a lot less expensive, just to remind people, come back again. But when you're trying to create a new event and you're trying to build a market for that event, the marketing, if you want that event to be successful, the marketing is much more expensive. And you'll see that ours, just like Greg said, you know, we would have easily hit the 300,000 in expenses that are in this contract if it was a full year. But each year, those numbers will come down some, because as we build a clientele, we'll have to spend less dollars to advertise those events.
And again, fortunately, we have a very large surplus in our lodgers tax funds. Perfect opportunity to make a big campaign. Obviously, in the future, we will be budgeting based on what we're annually bringing in to keep a better schedule.
Thank you.
Any other
Thank you.
questions or discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Allen?
Make a motion to approve the Caristo agreement.
I'll second.
Roll call vote on item D. Mayor Pro Tem Hall,
Nay.
Council Crane,
Aye.
Council Weeks,
Aye.
we have a tie.
No, it passed,
It passed.
2-1.
Did you say nay?
I said nay, but it passed.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
It's a pass.
Okay.
Right.
Moving on to item E, I'd like to open discussion to approve the proceeding with adoption of International Fire Code 2021. Vance?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Manager Weir. Thank you for having this up. Angel Fire Department proposes the adoption of International Fire Code 2021 version. We have been asking, part of my initial recruitment, we were asked to hire a fire inspector for the village. It's been greater than 6 months before, since there was a previous fire inspector. We are continuing to get backlogs of businesses that need fire inspections, et cetera, that we are getting further behind on that. We are also staring down an impending ordinance for short-term rentals, and currently don't have anybody to help us process that or give any assistance in being able to weigh in on some of those factors related to that ordinance. Our records indicate that many of the inspections that have been done prior to now were as far back as 2009 code and 2015 code. And so we are pretty far behind on that adoption. Because of all those factors, we feel that it's in the best interest of the village to request assistance from the State Fire Marshal's Office and the State Fire Inspections Office. We've been in contact with Aaron Garcia, from the State Fire Marshal's Office, and he's offered to send us an MOU, memorandum of understanding, that they would help us with all business fire inspections. They don't do residential fire inspections, and I think that's important to note. This is for businesses only. He did reassure me that any classification of a business that remains current will continue to do business as that same business, and they would be held to that standard. Any business that would change classification in its occupancy loads, or if they went from, say, a restaurant to a daycare center and their occupancy changes or whatever, then they would be subject to the new 2021 IFC codes. But as long as they were continuing businesses as usual, then they would be held to the same standard.
The state though has adopted, they work under the 2021, correct?
They are close, from what I understanding, to adopting 2024, but for now, 2021 code is what they're currently operating under.
So if they're conducting inspections here, then when they change, would they be looking at 2024?
Potentially in the future, yes. I think they do allow grace periods for villages such as our own to adopt that. I don't know what that adoption period is. I can check with that.
In other words, would they, if we're still in 2021, would they be enforcing 2021, or being a state agency, would they be enforcing 2024 in that scenario?
I can't answer that directly, but I've been in several lengthy conversations with the inspectors, and they do recommend 2021. They did not recommend going to 2024 just yet.
And can you tell me if at all, what the bigger changes from our current, to the 2021 code is?
I'm not prepared with a list of those. I don't, after reading several documents, get a little cross-eyed with comparing code to code between the various years. Much of the information is the same. I think with some new classifications for, again, new construction, for requiring fire sprinklers for certain types of construction and so forth, there have been some updates to that. But I can't speak intelligently about a list of differences.
I think big ones would have obviously stood out in your mind.
I'd like to think so, yes.
Any impact here with our hydrant situation, jumping to 2021?
No, not directly. ISO kind of, would fall in, our ISO inspection really kind of like looks at infrastructure, our staffing levels, equipment response, fire flow, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't see a big impact on that.
For the benefit of adopting the 2021 code, obviously just to be more current, but is that to allow the state fire marshal to come with our inspections?
Correct. We're not able to ask for their help, or they won't enter into the memorandum of understanding unless we adopt the 2021 code and come up to a more current state. They're not going to continue to inspect under 2009 and 2015 standards.
What are we currently on?
2015, the majority of them. There are some records that show back as late as 2009.
Any other questions or discussion?
I don't see any financial impact either, just to address that, other than, it may be a financial positive, net positive, if we are currently not paying for a fire inspector because we don't have that position filled. I did want to mention that I reached out to all the resources that I have to try to recruit somebody to come up here and work. I have some Albuquerque Fire Department contacts and so forth, but, due to housing costs and being on a 40-hour work week, et cetera, it's, proving to be pretty challenging. I thought I had 2 different inspectors on the hook and both of them eventually declined. And,
Manager?
Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Council, just to reinforce, this is a change to an ordinance, so this is a permission to proceed. We will have to publicize this, have a public hearing, and come back and actually approve this. Hopefully, no later than our end of November. We might have to, because typically, I think we only have 1 meeting in November. We might have to have 2 to get concerned. I think it's worth mentioning that I did speak to Santos Martinez with planning and zoning, and he didn't have any objections. He was on board with it as well. Because I think it would impact them.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I make a motion to approve proceeding with adoption of the International Fire Code 2021.
Second.
Roll call vote on item E, Mayor Pro Tem Howell,
Aye.
Councilor Crane,
Aye.
Councilor Weeks,
Aye.
pass.
Moving on to item F, we'll open discussion to approve purchase of a new pumper tender. Grants.
Yeah, thank you for saving the lighter subject till second. Manager Weir advised me that we had some ARPA funds that were going to expire in December of this year and asked me to search for a unicorn. By doing so, we are requesting the purchase of a pumper tender for the village. The combined cost is $446,000. We're requesting the village pays for $182,000 and combined with $262,000 from ARPA funds, which would otherwise be forfeited in December if we don't utilize that $262,000. We're requesting to purchase a 3,000 gallon, 1,250 GPM pumper tender. This will help our ISO ratings in meeting our requirement that we have a 3,000 gallon per minute fire flow. We have a current tanker that's at the wildland station that only pumps 750 gallons per minute. This is over that, so we're only getting partial credit for that current tanker that's over there. In addition to that, we have it equipped mostly with wildland firefighting type equipment. This one will be equipped for NFPA 1900 standards to be a 100% full-fledged fire engine to be considered for ISO. Although it is not completely a unicorn that Brett asked me to find, he asked me to find a 4x4 that was in stock that we could get on the ground here in Angel Fire before December. It is a very pretty horse, and I put a paper cone on it to make it look almost like a unicorn. But it does have interlocking rear axles, and so we feel like it would be adequate to suit our needs here on the slippery slopes.
So after further discussion too, we built out 4x4, the time frame alone, but also it couldn't manage, the tank wasn't, in other words, it couldn't produce as much water. all as much water as this one. So this one actually, the flow rate is higher on this one, so this does help our ISO rating more so than the 4x4. And although 4x4s are always great to have in the mountains, this one's not a wildland rig, it's a, I don't know all the acronyms and, but it's for our, just, we don't have just a lot of, need in the winter time.
For the record, I'd like to state that I did actually find a unicorn, but it was too expensive of a unicorn apparently, so I had to go back to the drawing board, and this is what we resolved, and it was almost 600,000 for that. And if we were to custom build, to your point, it would take 3 years to purchase something and have it built and have it on the ground, so time is of the essence for that as well.
So chief, for some of us, what's the difference between a pumper and a tender?
Really, it's just the equipment that it carries. It comes down to a couple of different things, and the main thing you would recognize is the big tanks, the drop tanks that we pull out and utilize to have pumper shuttle. We're gonna equip it with both so that it allows us to use it in either fashion to allow a little diversity for us. But a fire engine has to have a certain set of equipment, like some ladders and pipe poles and things I won't bore you with, but essentially it comes down to just a few items.
Okay.
Yes, sir. The expensive one is the tank, the drop tank.
The wildland pumper tender, wasn't that just brought on a few years ago? During the wildfire?
I believe that's the other pumper tender that's at Station 2, and that is helping augment our ISO ratings as well. It gets pretty in-depth, but we have to maintain 3,000 gallon per minute pump capacity. And so when we include the one that we have at Station 1, the one that we have at Station 2, and only a 750 GPM pump that we have at Station 3, we only get 3/4 of a point instead of a full point for that one. So this would address that directly.
We felt like too, it was the biggest effort we could make towards our ISO rating in the shortest period of time.
Yes,
As well.
thank you for that.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I make a motion to approve purchase of a new pumper tender.
I'll second.
Roll call vote on item F. Mayor Pro Tem Hall,
Aye.
Council Crane,
Aye.
Council Weeks,
Aye.
yes.
We'll move on to item G.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Discussion, to approve proceeding with Title 12 short-term rental ordinance. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. So one of the things that the village has been trying to accomplish really since 2018 is an actual ordinance to regulate the short-term rental industry. This ordinance is important for many reasons, public safety, so on, liability at the village, and to establish a common set of rules for the short-term rental businesses to follow, and to make sure that our visitors are safe, that the industry continues to produce the revenue that it does. And again, this went back and forth with the Chairman Curry from the Lodgers Tax Committee. We went through legal counsel and we went back and forth again. And this is the result here is the short-term rental ordinance that we feel is going to best serve Angel Fire and try and accomplish as much of both the safety aspects, the business aspects, and to allow us to start regulating and enforcing short-term rental. Even though our revenues have increased significantly in the short-term rental market, a lot of that is just because we have companies that manage and they're all compliant with short-term rentals. We do believe that there's still a fair number of short-term rental houses that aren't complying. And we believe that this ordinance will give us the ability to start enforcing the the lodgers tax fees that have been in place now for since 96, I would say that was wrong. Anyhow, so we should see our lodgers tax revenue actually increase once we get this implemented. And we've also, paid for software, to help us with that, and we haven't been able to utilize that software, for the better part of the year because we didn't have any tool to go out and enforce things. So this will allow us to finally start getting some value out of the short-term rental software that we paid for, over a year ago. And I'd like to invite, Chairman Curry to see if he had anything to say, from the perspective of the Lodgers Tax Committee or, his business.
Council Mayor, Manager, I think there are definitely some compromises in here. I like the way the lawyer worked out some aspects of it. It does leave the fees part a little nebulous because it's not included in this. And that would be something that I would like to see maybe addressed prior to adoption.
And one thing that Manager Weir and I have discussed is that we would like to try to keep fees out of ordinance. That way they're able to adjust as necessary without having to rewrite an ordinance. So that's one reason we're going to keep the fees out of this portion.
Maybe just discuss proposed fees included with this, but I look forward to getting it out in the public and everybody be able to give their input in the next 2 meetings that happen about this.
I had a question. As I recall, one of the big sticking points was occupancy, ISO standards, and I see we're kind of based on bathrooms. Is that something that the committee came up with or a lawyer? How did I know that was gonna be a big hurdle.
The attorney.
Okay.
The attorney came up with it as an example. I think Bernalillo, if I remember, uses that as a methodology. There was some negotiation back and forth on what those numbers were. And it was just a compromise that we came to, that the lawyer could agree with and that Owen felt was good for the community.
And I see there was a section in there about for unique properties, if they need a variance from that, if we have a old bunkhouse or something that's full, those are gonna be done on a case-by-case basis?
That's correct.
Through council or through the
No, it'll be through council.
Yeah, because they're separating it now to short-term rental, which the Lodgers Tax Committee wouldn't have anything to do with.
Got it.
And it did address parking as well.
Yep.
Which, and then she did put in there, because none of these condos have the existing parking to really fit into anything, but I think the houses should be addressed with that issue. Sure.
So will this document impact anyone that's already approved?
I mean, it's definitely gonna impact the way it's written now, occupancy, even with the compromises, so, I think when I did my analysis of just our book, it was gonna be a 6% decrease in occupancy. But, I mean, if occupancy has to have an issue, then I think it was a negligible impact.
But if I had a short-term rental and it was already approved, I wouldn't have to come back in for.
This is altering the short-term rental, this is creating a short-term rental ordinance, so I mean, that would be something more that Manager Weir would have to address.
Mayor Pro Tem, currently, a short-term rental only has to get a business license and there's no rules really about anything. This will require all short-term rental to get a short-term rental permit unless they are managed by a management company, in which case they will be able to use the license acquired by the management company
They would still need to get a short-term rental permit, they wouldn't need to get.
I'm sorry, business license.
Right.
But they'll still need to get it. So, and there are some permitting requirements that is in the language in here. Again, a lot of it is geared, what we're trying to balance was, public safety versus impeding the business model that is, kind of our bread and butter. When we started this, I told the, legal counsel that we have a golden goose here and I don't want to kill the golden goose or have it for dinner, where we need to keep the golden goose alive. And so I think that was part of the negotiation with the Lodgers Tax Committee. And we feel like we've accomplished the best we can in both of those perspectives.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem,
I make a motion to approve proceeding with Title 12 short-term rental ordinance.
I'll second.
Mr. Manager, is this a first reading or a final?
this is just proceeding.
So this is permission to proceed is all this is.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Roll call vote on item G. Council Weeks,
Aye.
Councilor Crane,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Han,
Aye.
pass.
For our last item of new business, item H, I'd like to open discussion to approve proceeding with changes to the lodger's tax ordinance. Manager Weir?
So, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Council, again, this is, we had to make some adjustments to the ordinance regulating lodger's tax to recognize the short-term rental ordinance. So there's, if you look through the changes, they're relatively minor, in the lodger's tax, ordinance itself, and mainly geared towards recognizing the short-term rental ordinance and the relationship between those two ordinances. So again, this is a permission to proceed. We'll still have to publicize, we'll still have to have public hearings and a final vote, which I'm hoping will take place at the end of November. Some point where we can work out having a special meeting around Thanksgiving.
BJ, Mayor. Mayor Council. And also, there were some changes at the state level, and this brings us in line with that.
Questions or discussion? Mayor Pro Tem,
I make a motion to approve proceeding with changes to the lodger's tax ordinance.
I'll second.
Roll call vote on item H, Mayor Pro Tem Han,
Aye.
Councilor Crane,
Aye.
Councilor Weeks,
Aye.
pass.
finally on our agenda is our manager's report. Mr. Manager?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of things real quick. Actually, part of that discussion, on the, lodger's tax ordinances. We will be looking to move the operation of the short-term rental software that historically has been managed by the finance department. We will be looking to move that, with Director Ralph's approval. He's already verbally given me to the visitor to tourism department. And so right now, I don't know if you know, but the tourism department is actually managing our business licenses. It was kind of done out of necessity because the person who managed them for the finance department transferred to tourism. We didn't have anybody that knew how to do it, so we let that go with her when she moved over there. And that's been fairly successful. And so this, the program that we have, the short-term rental program, has a feature in it that will also allow us to better manage business licenses. So what we're looking to do is move that software over to the tourism department, since that software is really about tourism dollars and the money that they manage. And to keep the business licenses and include that in this host compliance software that we are utilizing right now to help us with short-term rentals. So just be aware that that will be moved under Director Ralph's purview. The other thing that I'd like to inform you of is with the approval of the mayor, we did decide to move the finance department to a different schedule. The office hours for the finance department are going to expand. So right now, we're open 8 AM to 5 PM. We have had complaints, not just recently, but over the years, about people who struggle interacting with the finance department, pay their utility bills or whatever, because we opened when they had to be at work and we closed when they got off work. So they had to figure out how to get to Village Hall in their lunch hour, which it wasn't always convenient for our residents. So we will be opening at 7:30. We actually started this week. opening at 7:30, and the office hours will be open until 5:30. Trying to help accommodate the people who work 8 to 5 and want to interact with the finance department and the utility billing department. Just so you know, in order to accomplish that, we did have to go to allowing some staff to work 4/10s, so that we didn't have to increase our staffing. And so we do have, not all, but several of our staff are either taking a Monday off or a Friday off. But all functionality is continuing to be handled 5 days a week. So this is actually, even though our staff are happy and some of them that they're working 4/10, some of them chose not to do, they didn't want to work 4/10s, they wanted to work 5 days a week, and we were able to accommodate that as well. But some staff are able to have either a Monday or a Friday off. They're very happy about that. And we are able to provide better service to the community by doing that. So I just wanted to make the council aware that that's something that was actually implemented yesterday.
Further,
That's it.
with that, this meeting is adjourned.